Thank you for that, Kristen. That was very useful. Thank you, Peter, and thank you, Carol, for the invitation. I have trouble, I've been told, staying concise, so I do have some notes here. I hope they're not too distracting. I'm really honored to be here, and I hope that my insights and ideas will be helpful. And I do look forward to the discussion following my talk. My name is Jamila Raqib, and I'm the Executive Director of the Albert Einstein Institution. So in addressing some of the most serious problems that exist in our societies, many well-meaning people think that if they simply denounce oppression strong enough and protest it long enough, the desired outcome will somehow materialize. Unfortunately, though, denouncing policies that we don't agree with is not enough in itself and doesn't produce real and lasting change. The Albert Einstein Institution, where I've been privileged to work with their senior scholar, Gene Sharp, for the past 10 years, has a very unique mission. We conduct research on strategic nonviolent struggle and to promote its use in place of both conflict, violence, and passivity in acute conflicts around the world and to address various very diverse problems around the world. So we do this by looking at the historical cases of the use of nonviolent means of struggle. So when people have wanted to produce social, political, or economic change, and I mean moving beyond simply protesting policies or expressing disapproval, but in actually producing change and doing it self-reliantly, how have they done it? So when it's worked, why has it worked? And when it's failed, what are the factors that have contributed to failure? We think that the study of the history offers a great number of lessons that can be very helpful for groups that are struggling for change today to be more effective in achieving their goals. This technique is not culturally specific, but has universal characteristics and international practice. It's a technique based on social, economic, and political application of basic human stubbornness. The determination and ability to dissent, to defy, to refuse to cooperate, and to disrupt. In other words, people will refuse to do that which they're told to do and do that which is forbidden. So here's the basis of our work. It's really centered around an analysis of political power. We think all governments rely on cooperation and obedience from people and institutions for their very survival. These sources of power are referred to as pillars of support. When people and institutions choose to withhold or withdraw that cooperation and obedience and can maintain that resistance even in face of mass repression like we're seeing around the world today, governments are left without any of the sources of power that are necessary for their existence. Nonviolent struggle has been applied in various types of conflicts throughout human history to resist oppression, undermine dictatorship, oppose foreign occupations and invasions, defend the rights of minorities, of women, of workers, of marginalized groups, and to expand freedoms of all kinds. As opposed to violence or guerrilla or terrorist struggles, nonviolent resistance not only allows but actually depends on participation of large demographics of the population. And also regardless of their age, of their sex, physical condition, beliefs, and includes diverse segments of the population. Heavy use of symbolic methods like protests and vigils, these are important, but more important are the methods of non-cooperation and intervention. The aim needs to be to produce political paralysis by withdrawal of support and can cause disintegration of a regime as we have seen. Recent events have dispelled some of the common misconceptions that people have held historically about this field and its relevance for groups worldwide. It was thought that nonviolent struggle is weak, that it's ineffective, that it works by melting the heart of the opponent or by convincing your opponent of the justness of your cause. These misconceptions are mostly gone in a large part due to the Arab Spring. This is due to the bravery of people in Tunisia, in Egypt, and elsewhere. It's a new understanding of the power of ordinary people, which has very far-reaching consequences. The events in the Middle East have sparked a debate among people throughout the world about whether these events could prove to be a model to bring democratic change to people in other countries. As information spread about our work and people learned about the ways in which groups in various countries found our writings helpful, we began to receive a significant number of inquiries to our tiny office. People in many different countries, including our own, dealing with diverse challenges, began to ask a surprisingly similar question. Why not us? They asked. Can this technique of action, whose power has been clearly demonstrated, provide political means to address the problems that we face? These requests came from people dealing with the problems of foreign occupations and invasions, who were concerned about climate change and environmental issues, economic injustice, and corporate exploitation, among others. Of course, we couldn't tell them what to do because we don't have detailed information about these diverse problems. But though we may not have ready-made answers, we do have resources that can give people a way to think about the problems and begin to chart a way forward. So we began to explore in our office, what is it that people actually need to know to plan a struggle that can actually have a chance of succeeding? So Gene Sharp and I, we developed a curriculum. It's a publication called Self-Liberation, a guide to strategic planning for action to end a dictatorship and other oppression. I actually helped come up with that title, and I guess we're not known for our brevity with our titles either, but we like to be clear. The booklet is actually a guide to 900 pages of reading. That's actually the abbreviated version I've been told to share. But it makes possible wise strategic planning. It's intended to enable individuals and groups to self-reliantly plan a strategy for their struggle. We think that the chances that a struggle will be successful can be greatly increased by acting in accordance with a wise strategic plan. A wise plan requires careful thinking. That's identifying the characteristics of the present situation, what needs to be done, why, when, how to do it, all while countering the opponent's actions and repression. Throughout history, these means have been used with great effectiveness in an improvised fashion, often spontaneously. Rarely we've seen great strategic geniuses like Gandhi, but relying on intuition can lead to ineffectiveness, defeat, or other serious political problems. With access to this important material, it's now possible to make nonviolent struggles more effective than they've been in past years. Gene Sharp says, and others, that we no longer need to reinvent the wheel. The literature that we have available on our website or in printed form is of a generic nature. It's not written to address any specific problem. Our policies forbid us from telling people what to do or even that they should do something. We don't give specific advice in part because it would likely be wrong. We think effective strategies that actually have a chance of working require detailed knowledge of the situation, information that outsiders don't have. Nonviolent struggle, because of how it operates, leads to greater democratization and empowerment of groups. As opposed to violence or passivity, this means of struggle diffuses power throughout a society rather than being concentrated in the hands of powerful elites. People learn how to organize themselves, how to conduct resistance against various opponents. Independent institutions are likely to be strengthened, and new ones are going to be created through their role in the struggle. Boycott of institutions requires establishment of new ones outside of state control. They'll therefore be more able to function effectively in the future, both in peaceful times as well as in crises. Our work is generic and transpartisan. It's a word we developed to mean that it doesn't require belief in a particular ideology. Rather, it can be used for a variety of objectives, including ones that we may not agree with. If we want to reduce reliance on violence as an instrument of policy and empower people to seek changes in their lives, we have to give people another way to fight, to conduct their struggles. This pragmatic piece is probably the most attractive part of our work for most of the people who have contacted us throughout the years. Our writings are distributed among individuals from a range of countries and situations with very diverse backgrounds. Gene Sharp used to say that, our work is distributed on all continents except Antarctica. But in a recent film about our work, someone from Antarctica called us and said, actually, we're using your work here also by the environmental movement. So regimes across the Arab world and beyond, and including our own, are paying close attention to the technique and how it's being used. In China, authorities fear the spread of protests. They've taken efforts to limit coverage of events around the world. The Syrian regime has been for a long time very desperate for a militarization of the conflict because a shift to opposition violence would change the dynamics of the struggle to one in which they have the upper hand. You can be sure that they and other opponents of democracy are studying the technique in order to learn how to defeat it. It's important that we also continue to refine the technique, to add to the research, to look at its various problems, to try to address them, and to make these analyses available to people, and to look at how technology and other innovations can assist people in achieving greater freedom. This technique can help people in groups become free, organized, disciplined, courageous, and capable of instituting a democracy and of defending it also when needed. Those of us who are working for a less violent and more just world should contribute to efforts to strengthen these tools. So that's all I have for the moment, and I look forward to speaking to you all further. Thank you very much.